Hello and welcome back to Stop the Foreclosure, another episode. This time is kind of chapter one of the book. Just kind of want to go through, this chapter with you all and just to kind of give some more insight if I have any besides the book, and to just kind of talk about things. And so the chapter of the book is called "You Can Get Through This," and the quote of the chapter is "Nobody makes it through life unscathed," by Dr. Becky Beaton, a founder and clinical director of the Anxiety and Stress Management Institute. And you may have seen her, by the way, on Householders. She was actually one of the doctors that was on that show. So, first of all, I just want to let you know that you're not alone. That millions of people have gone through what you're going through, and they come out stronger and wiser on the other side of foreclosure. From an interview with Terry Abraham, a licensed professional counselor, look, just don't think that this is the end of your story or the end of your world, okay? There are plenty of people, successful people, as a matter of fact, who've had financial hardships. And it's an opportunity really to kind of grow inside of that. I mean, just think of all the millionaires and some of the billionaires that you've heard of, who at least went bankrupt once or twice or several times in the years. They had setbacks, they learned from them, and they were able to get ahead, and so can you. So I kind of wrote this book personally because I went through foreclosure, and I wanted to take kind of what I'd learned and to put it in one place. Okay. I didn't think there was a really good source that had all 14 different strategies that a homeowner could take in foreclosure and kind of talk about the pros and cons of those. I was also deeply involved with about 24 properties in foreclosure in the state of Georgia. And in addition, I've helped probably about more than 1,000 families kind of, go through foreclosure, walk away from an unresolvable situation sometimes, fight the banks in court, and then, several short sales. So I just know that this can be a very tough time in your life. And I'm here to provide some guidance, maybe, and support, kind of help you get through this as best we can. And, you're just not alone, is what I'm trying to say. So, look, I'm here to pass this information on to you. It's free so that you can be well informed and that you just don't go through all the ups and downs that I went through, and that you can make the best possible decision for you and you and your family. Yeah, and just to give you the vital information that you need to make the best choice. So, the goals of the book are to help you acquire some confidence, to get you unstuck and able to take action to save your home, if that's what you so wish to do. Determine for yourself whether you should stay and fight or find a way to avoid foreclosure with peace of mind. Provide you with pertinent information about the 14 different strategies while on foreclosure. Make you aware of some of the legal traps, some of the things you may just not have known. I certainly didn't know, even though I was kind of well educated and a real estate agent with an MBA with the emphasis in real estate. Provide some relocating tips if it comes to that you need to relocate, how to downsize if necessary, easy moving, low cost storage, finding a new place to live with bad credit, and improve your credit score. So, those are some of the items that are in the book. And on the blogs, on the website at stoptheforeclosure.expert, as well as, we love to hear in the videos, and I'll keep talking about them. And please, by the way, feel free to comment down below with your questions. I will be looking for them and be recording episodes that address your questions. So, it's awesome if you could do that as well. And so here's another thing, is like if you're beating yourself up over borrowing money to buy your house, just please stop it. Okay. You know, there's some forces that are much bigger than you in play. I promise you, that have gotten you in this situation, not just you in general. And look, my wish is that you can get yourself and your family out of this situation with as little harm as possible. Okay. And maybe actually even be stronger for it in the long run. You could also be in the second category where you put 20% down, got a 15-year mortgage with a great rate, and then lost your income, not due to any circumstances that you caused necessarily. Could be through a medical issue, expenses, could be medical expenses, could be just bad timing, could be downsizing, lots of reasons that are out of your control. And look, I know this actually can be harder to deal with because you did everything right and still potentially lose your property. My advice is just treat this like a temporary situation that'll turn around in a few years. I'm trying to minimize the emotional impact by moving forward every day. Okay. Even a little bit of action can make a huge difference in your well being and your happiness. Now, look, if you're not moving as forward as you'd like, then I suggest kind of take the advice of Andrew McConaughey, a licensed clinical social worker, and start taking care of your health first and foremost. He likened it to a tree's whose roots have been weakened and won't survive the next storm. Take small steps and rebuild your foundation. So, first thing to do is just start eating healthier if you're not already. Okay, just put good stuff in your body, and I promise you, you'll feel better. Go for walks, runs, bike rides. Look, I walk every day now. Like that is a part of my well-being. I try and get somewhere between 10 to 14,000 steps in every day because I just know I feel better if I do that. And yeah, so that's a huge part of my well-being right now. Set yourself up for sleeping between 6 to 8 hours a night if you can. That's kind of ideal. I think any more than that, if you go beyond 8 or 9 hours or 10 hours, then maybe look at getting some help. Like it could be just you're just avoiding at that point in time. So it could be just a sign, is what I'm trying to say. Watch less TV. Pray, meditate, reread your favorite book, right? Watch the sunrise or sunset. Oh, some of the most, I love doing that when I get a chance. Take a warm bath. Take a cold bath or a shower if you want to wake yourself up and kind of, shock your system and just feel alive again. Ask for help. Okay. Do a fun craft, learn a new hobby, write yourself a note or a letter in the future telling yourself how you got through this. Okay. Play with a pet or children. Oh, that does get you present in the moment. And I think personally for me, it gets my mind off of whatever I've got going on. Yeah, drink more water, watch a new or favorite movie. So just things to kind of get you out of your head and more into just, feeling normal again for at least even for a little bit. I also just recommend this seeking a mentor or group who will support you in what you're going through. We actually have a Facebook group called Stop the Foreclosure. I will make sure that there's a link either here and there's especially one on the website, stoptheforeclosure.expert. Create a group if you can't find one. Go back to your place of worship if you've been away. Find someone to confide in if you're not. So you're just not doing it by yourself because really, that's when life gets rough. Just life is better if you can share it with somebody. And if you're unable or unwilling to seek out a group, at least start a journal, possibly to just capture your thoughts and emotions. This can be a place where you get out all your anger, your sadness, your anxiety, your frustration, your stress, instead of letting it bottle up. The journal can be the place that holds those negative emotions. It can also be a place where you can record your successes. Like if you have a little success getting your loan modification done, like the paperwork has been accepted and it's under review. I mean, that's a success. Write that in there as well. So it can just be a record of your journey along the way, the process. It also could just be a productive way to express yourself without, taking it on your spouse, your kid, the family dog, or anyone close to you. Like you can put those negative emotions in there and, at least have an outlet for that. Okay. So my recommendation is also just get physically outside of your house as possible. For me, oh my God, my property became a prison that just reminded me of my failures. Just as a symbol of my self-worth for a while. It's not good. Just not good. So, I just had to force myself to get outside eventually and just, it just started making a real difference to my sanity. Um, Look, if you're really stuck, seek out professional counseling. There are usually programs. You could start with the United Way because they're a really good resource for, 501c3 nonprofits in your area. That and maybe there's some counseling that you can get. You can also possibly seek out a pastor or a priest. Go to your synagogue or your mosque, whatever it is that you can find help in. That might be another way just to have someone to talk to and have an outlet to pray, to meditate, do what works for you. If it's going into the woods, if that's your religion is nature, then go out and go hiking. I mean, it doesn't cost anything typically and get you outside and get you back, in that direction. The book has a list of symptoms to help you assist in deciding what's best for you and your family. And basically, I'm just going to say the faster that you start to take care of yourself and your relationships, the easier it'll be to get through these tough times. In the housing market, like I said before, there are forces that are just much bigger than you. And Dr. Bill Buchanan of North Point Psychology said the blame should be placed on the past and you control over how you react now. You have control over your reactions to what is going on now in the future. Look, no one's coming to rescue you. Okay. Just to be straight about it. Like, there's not going to be a fireman that knocks on your door telling you the flood's coming and then a boat and then a helicopter. It's up to you and your family and your partner to decide what is appropriate for you all. And really, you can take on the attitude of that I or we, depending on your situation, can get through this. So, it's an opportunity to partner up and actually can build up your relationship if you're in communication. I think it's an opportunity. I'm not going to say it's always going to happen, but it is an opportunity. Look, the following quiz that I've got in the book in here is to see if you have what it takes to fight the bank, like emotionally and financially. So just wanting to be honest with yourself. It does take something to go to court with the banks. It is draining at times. It is frustrating. It is just, it does take something. So look, for some, the entire world has become about saving the property at all cost without the real toll on their finances, marriage, and other relationships. Look, I do think that there are times to fight, and I think that there are times to let go, as you'll see in later chapters. For getting a loan modification, uh, here's the quiz. So, for getting a loan modification, are you willing to be on the phone for hours, fill out all the paperwork, sometimes multiple times, because they will lose it? It's been known to happen quite often. Handle all the emotional roller coasters of the process. Just be prepared for it, is what I'm trying to say. We do have a loan modification course on the website at stoptheforeclosure.expert. It's free. It's got some really good information there about how to go through the loan process. So take advantage of that. Look, do you have ten to $30,000 to pay for the attorney's fees to fight the banks? And not necessarily in judicial states like Florida. About half the states are judicial states, which means that the bank actually has to go to the court to do the foreclosure. Sometimes you can hire an attorney for $300 to $500 a month to help you fight the bank, which is much more reasonable. But just know that may be a cost if you're going to go that route, if you're not going to represent yourself. And are you prepared to rent out rooms in your property? If you're really willing to stay in the property, maybe you and your family, go to a few rooms and you rent out some rooms to get some additional income to help support maybe fighting the bank or getting caught up on bills or just, having money to eat and stuff, if that's what you want to do. And is your spouse on board? Like they may not be up for the fight. You might be, but they might be, or vice versa. Is that maybe your spouse is like gung ho, we're going to do everything we can to save this property, and maybe you just don't have it in you to fight the banks. So that's just an honest conversation to have. And let me just ask you one thing: if you weren't dealing with the stress of this property, what would be possible? Like we actually have a program where we can help some homeowners if they qualify, if the house qualifies, that we can actually help them get tens of thousands of dollars out of their house and some monthly cash flow. Like that is a possibility. It does require moving. I'm not going to say it's easy. I'm not going to say it's what you will necessarily want to do. But like if you didn't have the property and you actually had some cash in your hand, like what would be possible? So just something to think about. And look, for most I would say for almost all homeowners, if you have the willpower and the desire, it makes sense for just at least attempt a loan modification. Historically, it's been around 20% of received loan modifications. But it is an opportunity to slow down the foreclosure process. Technically, that should give you some more time. It also gives you other options if the bank comes back and says, no, we're not going to, you don't qualify. At least they can give you some options for like cash for keys or a short sale deed in lieu. So it's just a good way to at least be in communication with the bank. And like I said, that if and when you ever decide you want to sell the property, or I don't know if I've said this before, but if and when you've ever decided to sell your property, either just in general, like you make it through the foreclosure and you want to sell your property, please allow us to recommend a real estate agent to you in your area, a great real estate agent. We do get some help in that helps keep this channel going. It doesn't cost you anything if you just decide to do a short sale. Let us help you find the realtor with that because one of my goals is to make sure that you've got really great people representing you. And there are great real estate agents and there are not so great real estate agents when it comes to doing like a short sale, for example. So there are some really things that the good ones know, the other ones just don't. So I'd be honored to help you find a great one. And then working with compassionate real estate investors might be the next best option, or maybe be the best option for you. Like I said, in some cases, if the house qualifies, you can get tens of thousands of dollars out of your house. So That's another possibility. From the last housing crisis, I will say that, I've talked to quite a few people. No, the homeowners that actually moved on and kind of, well, I just want to say, what dealt with the foreclosure up front and quickly, and either moved on from the property or got their finances reorganized as quickly as possible. They just recovered faster. You know, their economic and mental health was better, and just left them in a better place in the future. Personally, what I found was, until I was done with my foreclosure, my life was on hold. I couldn't move on. I didn't move on with my life until I moved out of the property, really. Also, if you answered yes to more one questions of the quiz, I just like to consider the following. In most cases, going to court to fight the foreclosure does two things. It buys you time and increases what you owe to the bank. And as you'll read in the chapter Fight the Bank, it may be way more expensive to stay than you think. So just be aware of that as well. In some states, such as Georgia, a non judicial state, you just may not get nowhere going to court. That's kind of what I found. My 24 cases, I talk about them more in the Fight the Bank chapter. But yeah, it wasn't really effective. Whereas in Florida, a judicial state, and half the states, you may be able to hold off your foreclosure for several years, depending on your situation. Not always the best necessarily, especially if you have lots of equity in your property. You got $40,000 or more in equity. I'm not going to give you. I'm not telling you what to do, but I would personally sell the property and walk away with the cash and find a way to start over in a good place, in a nice home, or an apartment if necessary. But at least it would give you some cash and to kind of restart your life instead of letting all that equity go to the bank. Yeah, because that's basically what's going to happen. It's just, get lost in the sale. So at least take advantage of it if you can. Yeah. And look, even going to fight the bank, almost in every case, it goes back to the bank eventually. Yeah, so it's just very rare that anyone really wins or gets a decent settlement in court, like 1 in 1,000, maybe. It's just so rare from 2000. I would say 10 is kind of 8, 9, 10 to 2016 was when I was really kind of in it before. I just very rarely heard of people winning their cases in court. I mean, it's just so rare. But remember, and the banks got deep pockets, and they can't really afford to lose, because once people start winning in court, and they start losing houses, it's just not, they're just not in the business of giving houses away. So they're going to really fight tooth and nail. And so is the court system, by the way, because the judicial system cannot handle a big win either. If there was a landmark case where homeowners started winning their houses, the courts would be flooded, which would overwhelm the system. So just be prepared mentally and financially that you may not win in court. And I was schooled this the hard way, which you can read again or listen to the chapter Fight the Bank, which I will do an episode on. Um, and one more lesson that I learned along the way is that most attorneys either know very little about this area of the law or are unwilling to learn to go to court to fight the banks. Now, maybe that's better now. I really don't think that there are actually many attorneys that really want to fight the banks. But in numerous cases, I was the one who taught the legal theory to the attorneys, or compelled them to litigate, and then I was always bringing them court cases to reference and teaching them the legal arguments to pursue. But then they would charge me to research what I had given them. So all I just know, it was very expensive and time consuming. Um, Look, but knowing what I know now, there are a few instances where I would go to court and fight the banks. Maybe if I had a lot of equity and the house meant a tremendous amount to myself and my family. Another instance, maybe after foreclosure, where they did a wrongful foreclosure, they didn't have the right to foreclose, or they did it in such a way that violated, case law. Then yeah, then that's a decent way to get a settlement potentially. So look, and just to remind you, there's only about 5 ways really to stop a foreclosure permanently. So one is getting the loan current, or in forbearance, or a repayment plan if you can, and make the payments either yourself or with an investor. So a loan modification can make the payments a lot more affordable if you can get it. So I do recommend pursuing one if I was in your situation. Paying off the mortgage. If you can find a way to pay off the mortgage either by selling the property, or if you can if you can refinance it somehow, that might stop the foreclosure and give you an opportunity to start over again. Deed in lieu and foreclosure. The bank, if the bank will let you, you may be able to actually walk away with a little bit of cash. There's cash for key there between like, I don't know, $500 to $3,000 was typically what cash for keys were back in the day. Letting it just go to foreclosure, just the do nothing strategy. Like if you let it go to foreclosure, and it goes further, like that is one way of stopping the foreclosure. And then the last way is quiet title. It's just a very rare legal maneuver to separate the loan from the property. It may stop the house from being foreclosed, but the loan is still owed. So the mortgage is kind of the glue between the loan and the property. And the mortgage says, okay, if you don't pay the loan, then this house, this property can be sold off to pay off this loan. That's what technically what the mortgage is. And you can separate the two. It is technically possible. It has been done in the past. Does a couple things. One is the money's still owed. The property is not the collateral anymore, and the house may not be sold. Like you could have damaged the title to the point where you just can't. No one can get title insurance on the property. So it just makes it very hard to resell the property, and especially to a new bank loan. So heads up on the quiet title. There are some risks to that. It's not risk free. So if you have equity in your property, you may want to sell it sooner than later to maximize the amount that you can walk away with. Like just for example, if you got a home that has a $1,500 or $1,800 a month mortgage, like taxes and principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, it may be costing you actually $2,500 to $3,000 a month to stay in that property while it's in foreclosure, just because of the late fees, the penalties, the attorney's fees. Like it all adds up, and it's gonna be 100 to 1,000, $1,000, $1,500 a month. So that's why I just say it's very expensive to stay in your home. You may think that you're staying in it for free, but if you got equity, it's going away. Now, if you don't have equity, then that's a different story. There could also be deficiency judgment, so that has been known to happen as well, and I'll get into that into later chapters. So let's talk about the ways to slow down a foreclosure. This is first by usually applying for a loan modification or forbearance. And maybe, if you can get a repayment plan in place, that's a great way as well, if that's still possible. Filing a lawsuit might be an option in a judicial foreclosure state. And the last and least favorite way is bankruptcy. Look, getting a loan modification I've talked about is not a walk in the park, and in the past, a lot of time, tenacity, and mental toughness. Just be prepared. It takes longer than you think it will. It can be emotionally draining. People have had to resend them the documents, up to 6, 7, 8 times just because they keep losing it, and there's a reason for that. At least back in the day, there was. And I do know that people have had success getting their interest lowered and their loan balance reduced. And it has gotten a lot easier than it used to be. So, go to the episode on loan modification and listen to the 3 success stories that I have in there for you. Just hang in there. You can do it. Also, go to the website, like I said earlier, and get the loan modification course. That's free for you. If you are getting back on your feet, and it may take a lot of time to fight the bank, and you may lose income just because you're focused on fighting the bank and not making money. So just remember that, not just remember, but look, here's what I would say is that, check in to see if your emotions are driving this decision to fight the bank. Like it may see if it really makes financial sense and emotional sense to fight the bank in court. Like I said, you may be losing way more money in equity than you are saving it with, by paying an attorney each month. Bankruptcy, one of the reasons I don't like bankruptcy is that, it only slows down a foreclosure by about 2 or 3 months. And sometimes, unless you tend to do a chapter 13 and get a settlement plan, which is possible, and I do talk about it in one of the chapters, the bank will usually pull the property out of bankruptcy and continue with the foreclosure. It's also illegal to use bankruptcy to delay, hinder, or defraud the bank while in foreclosure. So technically, if you file a bankruptcy just to stall the foreclosure, technically it's violating federal law. Just FYI. Yeah, so not great, and there are lots of downsides to bankruptcy. So I'll get into those details more in another chapter. I'll talk about bankruptcy. Some program or some states have programs where you can borrow money to get caught up on your payments under certain circumstances. Just remember that this may put you further behind, and most state programs only help out families with low to moderate income. Check your state to see if you qualify and if they have funds available because they will come in and they'll go very quickly. So, well, you always got to check. One other thing is that spending your retirement, like your 401ks, IRAs, may seem like a good idea for saving your home, but just remember that you might have to end up working an additional 10 to 20 years to save your property. For a property that, on average, most homeowners stay in their property for 7 years. And even though it's easy to take the money out, it may put you way further back behind than what you think. Because compounding interest is so important. And look, my vision for the world is to set up families with intergenerational financial stability. I work with people in retirement programs all the time. That's like my financial world. And I've heard of people pulling out their 401k and IRAs, and I'm still friends with them, and they're still working way past the age of 65 because now they can't retire till much later in life. So just think about the impact that may have, and if that's a road that you really want to go down. So I've included all the options with dealing with foreclosure. Actually, added one. So it used to be 13, now it's 14 strategies in foreclosure. And as I find more, or I think that they apply, then I will add them and give you the upside and downside to each. Look, I am not an attorney. Okay, this is the disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a licensed real estate professional anymore. So just my strong advice is to seek legal and financial advice from those professionals. I am here to give you my experience of what I've gone through, the pros and cons of each of the 14 strategies that I'm aware of. Help you just be better informed to ask the right questions of those professionals. Okay, like that's kind of my goal here, and to just help your family get through this with some grace and ease. Okay, and look, give yourself some credit for any successes that you have along the way. The foreclosure process can wear you down if you're just not careful. So, I just recommend taking as much time as you need or can to keep lifting yourself up. And look, here's the insider secret. So the name of the book is, the secret to keeping your home. Here's the insider secret. Find a way to stay healthy while in pre-foreclosure. Don't let this temporary situation get you down. Okay. Reach out to other people and keep moving forward every day. We are here for you at Stop the Foreclosure. You can sign up for a free home review. You get 30 minutes with me or one of my well-trained people, and we will take an assessment of your house and say, look, if like this is what we might do in your situation. Okay, so you can take advantage of that. We can talk to that. You can ask your questions in the comments below on the YouTube video. We'll look forward to looking at those. You can also go on the Facebook group and talk to other people. So we're here for you. Look, we have compassion. We've been through this. We just give our hearts out to helping people in foreclosure, and we're here to support you and give you some guidance and get you through this. So, all right, my homeowner heroes, take care of yourself. Get outside, get some fresh air, and I'll see you on the next one.